Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art and Science of Learning Summit. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers for you who are excited to share new ideas, fresh concepts, and actionable insights that you can take into this new year. This is the first of 3 sessions we have today, and this conversation will be all about how AI is being used in learning design. My name is Audrey Crouse. I'm the Marketing Programs Manager here at Intellum, and I'm excited to introduce you to today's speaker, Roberto Aiello. But before we do that, I want to address a few housekeeping items. So first, this webinar is being recorded. We will have a live question and answer portion of today's presentation at the end. So if you do come up with additional questions, and I say additional because the session will be interview style, please visit the Q&A box just below your video screen and submit your questions. We'll be fielding those at the end of the session. And also below the video on your screen are attachments. So there you'll find a free link to a free trial for Intellum's Evolve product. So there's a link there that you might want to check out. And I also want to mention that if you find that your video becomes blurry at any time, you can manually adjust the resolution by using the gear icon on the bottom right corner of your screen. Lastly, we want your feedback. We put these webinars together with you in mind, but we want to make sure that we're hitting the mark. So you'll find a Rate This tab below the video screen, and we'd love for you to tell us what you like, what you don't like, what we can do better. So please, at the end of the session, feel free to share your feedback. All right. With that, I want to introduce Roberto. Roberto is joining us all the way from Ireland and is the Senior Learning Experience Designer at Personio. He was recently recognized as a top 1% mentor in learning design by the ADP list in September of 2024. So with that, we're going to jump into a conversation. And as I mentioned, this will be interview style. So the questions will be listed on the screen. And if you have additional questions than what we get to, please, again, submit those in the chat. So to kick this off, first question, are you ready, Roberto?
Yeah, I'm ready. Hi, everyone.
All right. So can you talk to us about what are some of the misconceptions about AI and learning design that you'd like to address for the audience? Some that you've seen in your own practice, some that you've seen at large.
I think probably the biggest is one everyone knows, like that AI is going to replace our jobs, right? In reality, I think about AI more as an assistant for now. For instance, we can use it in learning design to handle repetitive tasks, like drafting outlines and speed up some processes so we can focus on creativity, strategy, things like that. It doesn't replace human insight at the moment. It complements it. For example, I can use AI to generate quiz questions or an initial draft quickly, but I still decide on the content's emotional tone or cultural relevance. AI can make suggestions, even good ones, only if we provide the right context and guidance. And that's one. Another one, I think, is that AI is plug and play. Many believe it's enough to open ChatGPT, do this, click, and get amazing results, which can be true sometimes. But it generally requires careful input, testing, and iteration to work effectively. Even if you just copy-paste prompts taken from the internet without tailoring them, you risk generic results. AI is a tool, so like every tool, it needs guidance, I think.
Yeah, and human guidance at that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, next question regarding AI's role in learning design. How has AI changed the way you approach designing learning experiences, and what excites you most about its potential? So obviously, as you just mentioned, you as the human or any of us using the tool are still going to be involved. So what are the possibilities that you're excited about?
Yeah, it has transformed quite a bit how I approach learning design. Now I can spend less time on manual tasks and more on big picture strategy and learner engagement. For example, one project that comes to my mind is when I worked on the compensation course at Personio. It was a course for HR professionals on how to implement compensation plans. Since that was a complex topic and one I was unfamiliar with, I used AI to generate an outline and draft the initial content. And this gave me a structured starting point so I could focus my time with a subject matter expert on refining insights and examples instead of building everything from scratch. And that made the process faster without sacrificing the depth, and made the collaboration with the SMEs much easier overall. I think everyone can relate with that. Like SMEs are always busy because they have their daily job too. So anything that we can do to optimize this collaboration is fundamental to get better results and more help from them in the future. Other things I use AI for is to brainstorm ideas for course structures, generate quiz questions, as I mentioned, refine drafts faster. All things that save us time and allow us to focus on adding personal touches that make content more effective. And there are many things that excite me about AI's potential. To give a few examples, how AI can make training more personalized. And for product training, how much of this can happen right in the product where the customer needs it. Or adaptive learning paths that adjust in real time based on user performance or interest. That level of personalization is within reach, and it's exciting to think about where this could go in the next few years. Think about learning that doesn't happen in isolation within an academic course, but throughout a learning ecosystem with several touch points.
So you mentioned this process of brainstorming with AI and using the AI tool to brainstorm new ideas. Can you give us an idea of what that looks like?
Yeah. For the compensation course, for example, again, I use that because it was one of the most comprehensive projects. When I used AI, was really like to give all the context to ChatGPT on all my research. Of course, I've done all the research before, like trying to understand and frame what's the real problem I need to solve for our customers, and what do we need to do, and also like, again, not thinking only about a course in isolation, but like what are the possibilities for this learning experience to move across different output, like not only a course, but let's talk about social media, let's talk about community events, so how we can create. So I was providing a big context. We're not talking about just a simple prompt, but really like some people call them mega prompts, but it's really like providing the whole context, the problem we need to solve, the what is the goal we want to achieve, and moving that way. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks I know that was a follow-up question. Thanks for answering that. Yeah. So in regards to localization, what are some challenges you faced in localizing content for diverse audiences, and how has AI addressed these?
So localization has always been tricky, and I know many can relate, all the people working with multiple languages. Myself, as you can tell, English is not my first language. I'm Italian, so maintaining content across multiple languages always been tricky, and not all the tools support that very well. Small teams often struggle to keep up with updates, and translation in the end can be slow and expensive. And AI is making this process much faster and more scalable now. An example here. Our localization process at Personio involves writing content in English, preparing the document for submission to a translation vendor, waiting 3-4 days for the translation, and then spending another day for internal review. I always look for opportunities to improve efficiency, so recently I experimented with building an AI assistant to handle Spanish translations. We tested this with internal native speakers and saw a 70-75% time savings. So instead of waiting several days, we get the initial translation in seconds and then completed the internal review. It's not a perfect system yet for some reason, but I'm confident we'll get a faster and more scalable process in the near future. Looking ahead, I'm also thinking like the AI's potential to instantly translate videos, synchronize the lips. I mean, we already see this sometimes. All this opens up scenarios we would have considered impossible just a short time ago. I believe human oversight from native speakers and localization experts is still necessary, but AI is making localization more accessible, and it really will enable us to share knowledge globally with far fewer barriers.
Yeah, that's good. Next question. How do you see AI helping bridge the gap between learning, marketing, and community building for an more integrated strategy? And I know this is a huge topic, especially when we think about collaborating cross-functionally.
Yeah, I mean, this I'm going to touch again on what I just mentioned about my compensation course and approaching for other than the academic course. So thanks to AI, now I find it easier to connect learning with marketing community strategies. And I see that especially useful for smaller teams that don't have the resources to do this manually. As I mentioned, for the compensation training, I explored ideas to surface the content throughout the year when it matters most to our customers. This meant considering social media posts, community events focused on compensation during key industry movements, such as salary benchmarking reviews in August and September. So I identified what are these industry movements throughout the year, and I worked with AI to strategize around that. So, it's also important, I think, because when we leverage existing content and surfacing it when learners need the most, we shift from endlessly creating new material to focusing on distribution and learning experience. So to me, that's what content at scale really means. When we deliver the value at the right time, not just creating more content. And AI can help a professional connect the dots like that. It also speeds up experimentation because now we can do even faster. We can test different ways to reach learners. We can generate variations of emails, ads, or even social media posts to see what works best. This integration means in the end that the learners are not just engaging with for example, your academic course, but they're engaging with the company and the broader educational ecosystem, making the learning experience stickier and more impactful in the end.
Yeah. I just want to pause for 1 second and encourage anyone. I see some questions coming in the chat. So I want to encourage you all to keep the questions coming, and I will get to them at the end. What strategies do you use to ensure that AI-generated solutions remain human-centered and aligned with learners' needs? So you've mentioned the importance multiple times of continuing to integrate the human element, the emotional element that humans can provide to whatever AI-generated content is produced. But what strategies are you using to ensure that that remains kind of at the forefront of the work?
I think here more than strategy, we also talk about mindset, and I think we need to keep in mind that we need to treat AI as a starting point and not the final answer. I often use AI to generate drafts, but we keep having all the feedback loop, the internal reviews in place to ensure that the tone and messaging feel human. One example is creating assessments. AI might help you draft multiple choice questions, but in my case, I refine them to ensure they reflect the real world scenarios and challenges learners actually face. So AI frees up the time for these refinements, so we can oversight and we can keep the final product learner focused and emotionally engaging.
I love that. Next question regarding ethics. This is always an interesting conversation as well. So, what ethical considerations do you keep in mind when using AI in learning design, especially when it comes to data privacy and learner bias?
Yeah, I think this is a huge focus area, and I think this is what keeps for now many companies from using. They stop many people and companies from using AI. AI tools are only as good as the data they are trained on, and biases in data can lead to unfair outcomes, of course. One thing I do is I avoid, and we do this in Personio as well, is avoid feeding we avoid feeding sensitive data into AI systems, and always review outputs for fairness and inclusivity. For example, when generating visuals or scenarios, I check that they represent diverse identities and avoid reinforcing stereotypes. And you mentioned data privacy. That is another priority. At Personio, we use AI tools that are compliant with the GDPR regulations, and we ensure that the models we use are not trained with data they shouldn't access. We also avoid inserting sensitive data in the first place. Yeah, in the end, AI should enhance fairness, not compromise it. So this is another area where human oversight, again, is non-negotiable.
The next question is, beyond improving efficiency, what new opportunities has AI opened up in your work that you didn't anticipate? So at the beginning of the conversation, we're talking about, what's the most exciting thing about the opportunities that are available when you think about kind of this Pandora's box that AI has opened for us. But specifically in your work, what are you able to do today that you never anticipated you'd be able to do because you have access to a tool like AI?
Yeah, I'm connecting here again to what I said before. I think it made me think more, and I like that because personally I am this way, to think more holistically about the learning experience, especially in customer education. As I mentioned, it helps me test new ways to scale content through targeted marketing strategies and community building efforts, which wasn't something I focused on before, not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't have the time. The main goal before was more to create training content to fill the academy library. But now, because I can do certain things faster, I can focus on other. And I've also experimented with AI generated images and concepts for interactive activities that could make the training more immersive. And another surprise has been the AI's potential for accessibility. There are many tools out there now that from an initial input can quickly adapt content for different formats, for video, audio, transcripts, making everything more inclusive. Now we can, without much effort, we can provide the same content in different media for fruition. So these tools have broadened how I think about what learning design can be and how it can evolve. And I think this is true for many other areas, not only learning design.
Sure. Can you give any specific examples from, you mentioned, you've used AI to generate new images or gamify different parts of your learning design. Can you give a specific example of what that's looked like?
Last year, I designed a course about AI in HR, and I wanted to experiment with this new way. So what I did was to feed the AI with the content of a lesson, and I was asking to provide me with an image that would reflect in a compelling way the content that was in this in the lesson. And so I got these very nice images that really represented what was the content, and I placed them in the course. And another thing I did was to go backward, and I wanted to give the learner also a chance to try themselves this prompt, the prompt that I generated that I used to generate the images, and to try to see if they would get the same image. And what I did was to to ask ChatGPT to give me a prompt that would generate a similar image and copy paste in the lesson with a JavaScript, so they could just copy paste that prompt and try them out in their tool of choice. And this was one. And another one was really to give an initial idea for an exercise that would happen in a community topic. And I used the ChatGPT again to get ideas based on a lesson, on a content lesson, to get an exercise that could be compelling to place in the community so that people could try that exercise. Sure. So it was like the first attempt to get out from the course in the academy and to get into the community and try to create this circular content.
I love that. And we're getting some follow-up questions specific to the example that you just gave. So I'm gonna transition us to there for just a moment. So okay. One of the questions is, how do you prevent your images from being too generic when you're using an AI tool to generate them?
One thing is to work. So my background is also in graphic design. So one thing I do is also working on a specific art style. For example, in this specific case, I added something to each prompt, really stating what style I wanted. In this case, I wanted the paper art style. I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's like a style like origami.
Sure. Yeah.
So in that case, and this already is helpful to get something that it's not just something that just by default comes to you. You define a specific style, and you can use this style and reference it through multiple pictures in the same context, in the same lesson, for example, or in the same course. This already helps a lot.
Amazing. And a second follow-up question, and I don't know that I would have thought of defining the art style, so that's amazing. And a second follow-up question to this particular side thread is, what do you mean by community? So you mentioned you were doing it within course, you're doing this exercise within the course and within community.
Yeah, I mean just that our courses happen in our academy. We have the Voyager Academy, is the academy for Personio, and then we have a community that it's just a separate environment. So it was like planning some exercises where we would encourage people, the learners, to get and to go into a specific forum topic in the community and interacting there basically.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to bring us back to our main questions, and then we'll come back for all of you who have submitted questions. Thank you. We're going to get to the rest of them at the end. Back to our regular program. So last question here with us is, where do you see the role of AI in learning design evolving over the next, call it few years, but 5 to 10 years? I know that's a long stretch to think. Just, as you mentioned, just a few months ago, we couldn't have even imagined what we're doing today. And so the evolution and the rapid evolution that's occurring for AI is wild. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, 5-10 years, this is really tough. Like, we don't know, but I think we'll see AI making learning experiences more adaptive and personalized. Imagine courses that adjust in real time based on learner performance, or AI-driven tutors that can answer questions in a conversational way. Some of this is already possible, but I imagine everything happening in a more natural way. Think about the difference between the old Google or Siri assistant versus advanced voice mode in ChatGPT. Localization will also become seamless, allowing companies to reach audiences in markets they couldn't consider before. What I find super interesting is the shift from reactive AI, where we actively prompt and receive outputs, to AI agents operating in the background, performing tasks autonomously. This year, I think we'll likely see more conversations about AI agents handling workflows for us. Personally, I wouldn't trust AI to send something directly to a customer without my supervision, but I can see cases where AI could assist with tasks that remain within my control. For example, imagine telling AI to monitor incoming emails, extract data based on specific criteria, and organize it into a spreadsheet stored in my drive. I could then review and verify the information before sharing it. This would create efficiencies without compromising oversight. Scenarios like this really, to me, highlight how AI could streamline repetitive tasks, giving us more time to focus on creativity and strategic thinking. One exciting possibility I think about often is how AI could revolutionize content maintenance. And I think here everyone can relate, especially with so much content. For example, imagine AI scanning for product updates and analyzing existing content in your academy, identifying the areas needing revisions, like something that before, now it takes a lot of work, but imagine if AI could do this in background. So scanning the product changes, mapping against existing content, sending you ideas for revisions. It could prepare a detailed document or report suggesting the necessary changes, saving enormous time to the team. And so the focus would shift to reviewing AI-generated suggestions and acting on them as needed. So this, I think this proactive content monitoring and recommendation system could make maintaining learning materials far more efficient and scalable. So I think while AI will continue to evolve, I believe it will be critical for professionals of tomorrow to study and gain foundational knowledge without relying too much on AI. For the reason, we touched on this many times, right? Like continuous human oversight. The problem is that if the professionals of tomorrow rely too much on AI, they won't know what they have to check. So I think human insight will remain critical for setting strategy, ensuring quality, and adding emotional depth. In the end, I think AI is a powerful enabler, but it's a human experience that will keep it grounded and meaningful. So we need to keep studying and know our craft.
Absolutely. So I'm curious. I'd like to unpack two things that you just mentioned. So we talk about using AI from an efficiency standpoint. It allows us, it frees us up time to be more strategic, more creative. And at the same time, we're talking about AI being a tool that we can brainstorm ideas with. So do you see there being overlap with AI also helping us be more creative, right? Because if we're using it as this idea generator for us, it's kind of that bilateral relationship that we then have with it, right? Where it's helping us generate. So can you speak a little bit more to that?
True, that's true. I think it's always important to really know the context you want to operate in and explain where you want to go and knowing your goals. I have an example here where I use AI to get ideas sometimes when I don't have none, but I know more or less what I want to do. I don't know how much you know about custom GPT. So in Chat GPT, you can create your own assistant, right? And there is the way you can do that now in Chat GPT. It's been for a while. Is also like you can do it in a conversational way. So sometimes it's as simple as, hey, I need an assistant to create script for a video for product demos. Can you tell me what do I need so that we create together an assistant that would provide a better outcome? And ChatGPT would ask you, I tried that, and it would ask you, for example, you can tell me how many minutes would you like this video to run, or can you tell me what type of product you are targeting and what type of audience? So even assuming I don't have too much knowledge of a certain topic, but at least an idea, I can still again using AI like my assistant and brainstorm together what I need.
Right. Kind of helps you guide and piece out all the different parts of the project that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, I wouldn't approach this way if I would really know nothing about the topic. But even if you know about the topic, but you don't want to sit down and write too much, you can move in this iterative way just to unpack things as they go.
Sure. And you also mentioned this interesting concept of studying and really knowing the tool versus not relying on it. And so what's that ratio breakdown, and what does the studying piece look like for folks who, are just being introduced to AI for the first time, or they're just starting to dabble with it, versus those who have already been dabbling with it since ChatGPT was born? What does that ratio look like? And then what is it that you think about when you think about we need to study it? What are we studying?
I mean, studying in the example I used about the video, it's I mean, I know what I need to make an effective video. Like I know how a good video would look like. So when I get suggestions, I can tell if that is a good suggestion or not. Maybe it's more about looking for ideas or suggestions I haven't thought about yet, but I would certainly recognize what is a good idea. So I guess I'm in that. Or when I want to generate a new image and I have a pretty rough idea of what of the output I want, um, then I know what to ask and I know how can I get ideas. But when I say don't rely too much, I mean in the case of drafting a course or writing a learning objective, and I do that with AI because I can speed up some process. But if ChatGPT would be down today, I don't stop working. I'm still, it will take more time, but I'm still able to go on my Google Doc and write down. Uh, this I mean by not relying too much, like
Sure.
making sure oversighting, making sure that the information I get are reliable and double checking them. If it's something, if I ask about some statistics or something like that, I would just check the source if it's something that I really need to be trustworthy. And yeah, and everything I do is still something that I know through my experience.
Sure. I would imagine there's a few folks on the call now taking a big deep breath, a sigh of relief that yes, there will always need to be the human oversight, and that we aren't yet at the place of AI completely taking over our jobs. So that's awesome. Okay, we have reached the end of our questions, so I'm going to transition our focus to the questions that have come in the chat. And there's a number of them talking about AI tool selection and things like that. But I think at the core of these questions are, is it about the AI tool, or is it about the prompts that you're generating, that you're feeding the AI tool? Is there such thing as the best AI tool in all the iterations that we've seen in the recent months? Or is it more a focus on what you're telling AI?
So there is this tool we use at Personio, to this AI tool, and the benefit of it is that we can switch models. So I have the chance sometimes when I write a prompt, I can test different models and see how different are the outputs. And it's true that sometimes some model give me more the output I would expect than another model. But also, I don't Yeah, I can't tell there is really the best AI tool. I don't think that exists. Personally, I'm focusing a lot on ChatGPT these days, and I try to master that the most. And I know about Claude and other tools out there. But what I've seen is that it's really difficult to stay behind all of these tools. They change so rapidly. Something that before sometimes I look these posts on learning on LinkedIn, sorry, and I'm smiling at them because they say, oh, use Claude for this, it's the best, it's the most useful for this particular task. But what I see is that they keep chasing each other, like all these models. So what wasn't possible 1 week ago with ChatGPT, it will be possible in 2 weeks, and the other way around. So I don't see the point on really like in the end, if we keep chasing the best model, we won't get our job done. I think
Hmm.
that's the truth. Like then it's not a tool. We just try to chase something we can't possibly keep the pace with. So let's focus on the job we have to do, and let's find out what works for what we need to do. In the end, I think yes, it's the tool and how we need it, how we use it. So
Yes. Yeah.
it's about prompting, giving the context, keep in mind our end goal. I think once we know these, any of these major tools would pretty much bring us 90% there. And then, of course, I wouldn't. If you want to try now, like generating videos, of course, like don't go to ChatGPT for now. I mean, you go to Sora. I mean, each model is now we have different AI tools for different media, but in general, yeah, I would say this like find the one that suits you the most at the moment, and just work with that, and stay curious. Like I keep being curious, so I look at them, I looked what different companies release, but again I focus mainly on one or two.
Sure. Yeah, and if we think about, we've talked so much about the human element, and if we think about the AI tool as another human, and we're having a conversation with another human, and we're giving that person as much information as we can so that they can give us an informed response. It's the same kind of concept there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think there is one thing I remember many years ago when I was teaching at the university, and I was teaching Photoshop. But when I was creating some images, everyone were coming and say and ask like, "Hey, what tool did you use?" Where the right question there was more like, "What is your process?" Do you get what I mean? Like I mean, I could have done that with another tool, not with Photoshop. It's
sure.
more about the process.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's really fine tuning the process and seeing what works for you to get to your end goal. Yeah. So this next question is interesting. Thank you, Rachel. It is, how can you build credibility and trust when it comes to learners engaging with an AI response?
Well, funny enough, I I mean I don't give my learners at the moment like AI generated response. Like everything again is reviewed, it's tweaked. So I don't take the result, the output of the AI as it is. So and when I get the output, I'm making sure through revision that is the same output I would generate if I was working without AI. Yeah, not sure if I'm being clear on what I mean. Like again, it's not that I use AI to give me an output I wouldn't be able to get to without AI.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that's good. There's a follow-up question here is, um, let's see. Sorry, I just lost my place. How do you think those who are designing learning materials teaching about AI can keep up with all the advances and updates and keep up with like the evolution of the products, right? And keep the training material updated.
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Okay, let me see if I can rephrase this in a different way. I'm gonna cut it in half. How do you think those who are designing learning material teaching about AI can keep up with all the advances and updates? We'll start with that part.
Oh, I don't know. To be honest, I don't know that because, like, I'm mentoring as well. Many people ask me, "Hey, where should I study AI? Can you suggest me any course teaching AI?" And I said, "Look, I don't know. Like last time I checked, I found on a website it was a course about ChatGPT that was 13 hours. 13
Wow.
hours. Like, by
Yeah.
the time you finish, you end the course, ChatGPT has already changed.
Changed.
So how can you possibly? Uh, I don't know. To me, I mean, we are at some point. You can use ChatGPT to do many things. Why not using it also to learn how to use ChatGPT? You can
Mm-hmm.
ask questions. Sometimes I do that. I say, hey, I want to do this. How do I create a prompt? Can you suggest me a way to make a prompt easier for you to understand it? Like, you can learn. And OpenAI, usually the company website, the company documentation is the most reliable source I use to stay up to date. To be honest, like there are some interesting courses out there, but yeah, that's a good question. Like how they can keep up with all the updates.
Right.
I'm
Yes.
scared about making a course about AI because I mean I should always be there and check. Unless I would have, like what I said in the future, we may have an AI agent that will scan and suggest me all the updates that are needed for the course.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's a nightmare.
Yeah. So a question going back to the topic of localization, have you had to restructure or rethink the formats of your content to be conducive to be deploying content to multiple languages?
Yes. There are different examples. So at the moment in the Personio Academy, in the Voyager Academy, we have English and German. Now, when you write an idea in English and you translate it, you localize in German, but this is also true for any Neo-Latin language like Italian or Spanish. Often you end getting a longer sentence, especially if you write formal. So when I did that in the beginning, and we did for the German market, we had to put we had some space constraint for some flip cards, and it was like the German translation was way longer, so the flip cards wouldn't look as nice as for the English one. So that made me rethink the way I was writing. I would write in English, so that helped me also to be more concise and trying to explain concepts in a different way, so that once translated, we would still be within those limits. I don't think here. I think sometimes having constraints helps creativity a lot because it makes even staying concise and really keeping the message more essential.
Sure.
I'm not sure it was this answering the question?
I believe so. I'm gonna scroll back down. Yeah, I believe so. If there are additional follow-up questions, please submit them to the chat. We have one more question that I'm going to answer, and then I want to be cognizant of time. So the question is, how can learning designers help prevent the learners from skipping the material and instead using AI to summarize the content and be used to give them answers to a quiz?
So can you rephrase? Can you say it again?
Yes. Ward, if you have an additional question here. I imagine what's being asked here is, how can learning designers help keep learners from skipping the material and instead using AI to summarize content, which would then give them answers to a quiz. So keeping the learner engaged rather than jumping off to find the answer elsewhere and then coming back.
I mean, I think that is the dream of every learning designer. Like, we would love learners, customers to keep going through our material instead of skipping it. I don't think here, like, AI would be necessary to help. Like, whether using AI or not, I think the general rule here is really like being relevant to what the customer really needs to learn. Like, the what's in it for you, like what's in it for the customer, what's in it for me when I learn. Why should I read this material? Like, I mean, I think this is a general best practice about learning design, framing the content in the way that it's telling the learner that what's in it for them, why they need to go through that content. And then there are also like technicalities, right? Like, you make the lesson, you can't skip the lesson until you complete it, and then you can move forward. But I don't think that's helpful, or that would give a better learning experience if we don't make the content relevant in first place.
Sure.
I'm not sure if that answered the question, like, because I couldn't really get the association between AI and
I think the idea is that because AI is able to give us so much information, how do we keep our learners engaged on the exact course that we want them in versus going off and trying to find their own answer using AI?
Yeah, I think still it's the same. Like, we need to be really understanding the customer pain, the learner pain, and what they need to learn to succeed, and trying to be compelling. I think it's impossible to avoid that they might use some AI tool to get a scan or content and get a summary. I don't see how we could avoid that at the moment.
Yeah. So on this topic of relevancy, and we can end here, relevancy and explaining the why. So as a learning experience designer, how do you do that? How do you explain the why to the learner and really explicitly indicate why they need the material that's being presented to them?
Yeah. I mean, we need to understand what's the problem we need to solve for them. And I can give another example, bringing back to the compensation project I was working on a few months ago. So, as often happens, people come to us and ask, "Hey, we have this new product with this new feature. We need a training." And my question is always like, "Really? Do we really need a training for that? Let's see if it's true." So what I do is really digging into all the data points we have. Okay, this is a new feature. What problem do we need to solve for customers? Do they struggle using this product? What is it? So I went into for example, the one source is the support tickets. We can go in there, scan it, search, and see if they have problems, what problems they have with this product. In the end, I figured that, and trying also the tool itself, and trying the tool myself, I saw that the tool itself was straightforward, and we didn't have any ticket really from customers asking, saying that they had problem with the tool whatsoever. So what we found out was the real problem, and so that many companies, especially small and medium, they don't have a compensation specialist. So the problem wasn't the tool, but the problem was the foundational knowledge they lacked about compensation in general. So there you go. We found our opportunity to create multiple courses, and only one about the product, but two of them more to build this foundational knowledge that then would enable customers to learn, and now they are able to use the product. So it's about finding, the opportunity, and not everything needs to be a training course. Like, it can be a help center article, it can be a mini course in an email format. So I think it's about really, we don't need to say yes all the time. We need to ask the question, like, what's the problem we need to solve?
Yeah. Okay, we are just about at time, and I'm curious if you have any final thoughts you want to share with our audience today.
I hope it was a great session or a helpful session for many. And I think, my final thought is this: that AI is a tool. Have fun with it. Use it to achieve your goals, not just for the sake of using AI. And in general, for learning design, always ask the real question. Find out what's the problem you need to solve and why you need to help your learners.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much for all the insight and experience that you've shared with us today. For those of you who are here with us on this session, we have a session coming up in 9 minutes. The next session will be all about gamifying your learning experiences. And then we'll end the day talking about the evolution of Intellum's content authoring tool, Evolve. So, Roberto, thank you so much for the time and the thought that you gave to this conversation. Again, we really appreciate that you were able to join us today, and we look forward to future conversations.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.